My maid of honor slept with my fiancé the night before our wedding, and I discovered it while standing at the altar, not through a rumor, not through a confession, but because the photographer accidentally sent me photos of them kissing in the bridal suite. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply that you handed them keys to your most private space and access to your most vulnerable moments? I did. Her name was Ashley. For 15 years, she was my closest friend, the one person I believed would protect me on the most important day of my life. I didn't know that behind her maid of honor smile, she had been seducing my fiancé for months. I didn't know she was planning to use my wedding as the grand finale of her betrayal. It happened at 3:47 p.m., 23 minutes into my ceremony. My phone buzzed with a message from our photographer. A message that would destroy everything before the marriage even began. The moment I saw Ashley's hands tangled in my fiancé's hair, I knew the woman holding my bouquet had been planning this long before I put a ring on her finger as my maid of honor. My name is Claire. I'm 28, a marketing director, and until 3 hours ago, I believed I was living the ending every girl dreams of. Ryan and I had spent 18 months planning the perfect wedding at Rosewood Manor, an outdoor ceremony surrounded by gardens that looked like something out of a romance novel. Ashley cried when she helped me into my grandmother's wedding gown, a gown preserved for 60 years. I thought she was emotional because she was happy for me. Now I know she was crying because she had already taken what she wanted. Ashley wasn't just a friend. She was woven into every major moment of my life: freshman year roommate, travel partner, confidant. The sister I never had. She had been there for everything with Ryan, too. Our first date, our first fight, our engagement party. I didn't realize she wasn't supporting our relationship. She was studying it. She learned every weakness, every insecurity, every moment of doubt. Not to help me, but to replace me. Ryan was the man I thought I'd build a life with. Ambitious, loyal. The kind of man who made big plans and bigger promises. We spent countless nights dreaming about our future. The house we would buy, the kids we might have. Ashley was there for all of it. Movie nights, weekend dinners. She blended into our relationship like she belonged there. She offered to help with everything: wedding planning, schedules, vendor calls. She insisted on staying in the bridal suite the night before the wedding. "So you won't be nervous." I thought she was protecting me. She was positioning herself. The morning of the ceremony, Ashley helped me get dressed, adjusted my veil, and told me I looked like a princess. She kept checking her phone, but I didn't question it. I was too focused on my future to notice she had already ruined it. During the ceremony, when she took her place beside me, Ryan looked at her. Not politely, not casually, but with familiarity. A glance that said, "We share something she doesn't know." The officiant began speaking. Guests smiled. Sunlight filtered through the trees. My bouquet vibrated. I thought it was a vendor update. I tapped the notification. The first photo. Me laughing in the bridal suite. The second photo. Ashley and Ryan. Kissing. Her hands in his hair. My wedding dress hanging behind them like a witness. Timestamp, 2:47 a.m. While I slept, dreaming about my future, they were living a secret. In that moment, my wedding didn't feel like the beginning of a forever. It felt like the public execution of everything I believed about love. The officiant's voice cut through the ringing in my ears. "Do you, Claire, take Ryan to be your lawfully wedded husband?" 200 guests watched me. Ashley smiled, holding my bouquet like a trophy. Ryan looked at me with practiced devotion. I had 30 seconds to decide: say I do and live a lie, or say I don't and walk away with my dignity. This day was supposed to define the rest of my life, and it would. Just not the way anyone expected. Before I tell you how I handled discovering my maid of honor's betrayal at the altar, you need to know who we were before that photograph changed everything. I'm Claire, 28, marketing director, a planner by nature, the kind of person who keeps backup plans for backup plans. I believed loyalty could fix anything, and that hard work could make every dream predictable and safe. Ryan entered my life during graduate school, when we were both drowning in 80-hour work weeks, internships, and caffeine. He was studying finance. I was buried in marketing strategy. We were two overachievers sprinting through life, convinced we didn't have time for love. We used to joke that if we ever wanted romance, we'd have to schedule it like a business meeting. But somehow, between study sessions, group projects, and late-night deadlines, we fell into something real. He was everything I thought a partner should be: steady, kind, determined. The kind of man who walked into a room and made you believe life would always work out. He came from a family where marriage was sacred, where people stayed. His parents had been together for 32 years and still shared inside jokes over Sunday dinners. Their home felt warm and unshakable, a sharp contrast to my childhood, which had been ruptured by divorce when I was 16. For the first time, I felt like I had a place where I truly belonged. On our 2-year anniversary, he took me to the same coffee shop where we'd spent hours studying. When the barista placed the latte on the table, I saw the foam letters, "Will you marry me?" I looked up, and Ryan was already kneeling, holding a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. The room erupted in applause. I felt chosen, secure, loved. I said yes with tears in my eyes. Ashley entered my life long before Ryan ever did. We met freshman year of college, randomly assigned as roommates. She studied psychology. I studied business. She was vibrant, intuitive, able to read people like open books. I admired how effortlessly she understood emotions while I understood strategy and structure. We complemented each other. Ashley moved frequently growing up because of her military family, and she carried her adaptability like armor. She could bond with anyone instantly, and she remembered every detail: your favorite coffee, your fears, your dreams. She made you feel seen. We became inseparable. Post-graduation, we backpacked through Europe. We were each other's emergency contact. We knew each other's deepest secrets. Ashley didn't just know my insecurities. She knew the exact places I was most afraid of being abandoned. When I introduced her to Ryan, I was excited. I wanted the two people I loved most to love each other. Ashley smiled, told me he was perfect, told me she could see how happy he made me. I felt lucky. We formed a trio: dinners, movie nights, weekend trips. Ashley blended into our relationship so naturally that I never questioned it. She analyzed Ryan's texts when we were first dating. She gave me advice when I was nervous to meet his parents. She celebrated our milestones like they were hers. She planned our engagement party, bought decorations, burst into tears when Ryan gave a toast about our future. She even called vendors when I got overwhelmed during wedding planning. Looking back, I can see it clearly now. Ashley wasn't helping me build a life. She was studying the blueprint of the life she wanted, mine. The wedding planning process was the happiest I'd ever been, or at least, I thought it was. Ashley came to every dress fitting. She held my hand when I stepped into my grandmother's restored gown for the first time. She told me I looked like I'd stepped out of a fairy tale. I believed her. Ashley never seemed to find love herself. She dated casually but dismissed every guy as unworthy of her standards. She insisted she was focusing on her career, that she'd rather be alone than settle. She used to say, "I want what you and Ryan have, a real partnership, shared goals." I felt bad for her. She attended weddings alone while I had Ryan by my side. I even tried setting her up with Ryan's friends. I thought I was being a good friend. I was actually giving her front row access to everything she wanted. The night before the wedding, she insisted on staying in the bridal suite with me for emotional support. She brought champagne, my favorite takeout, and a playlist filled with memories of our friendship. "This is our last night as single women," she said, lifting her glass. "Tomorrow, you become Mrs. Clare." We stayed up late talking about futures and promises. She wiped tears from her cheeks and hugged me like something was ending. She whispered, "Promise me nothing will change between us." Looking back, she wasn't asking for reassurance. She was asking for permission. When I finally got tired, she helped me get ready for bed. She adjusted my sleeping mask, tucked the blankets around me, and whispered, "Sweet dreams, bride. Tomorrow will be perfect." I fell asleep feeling loved and safe. What I didn't know was that when I closed my eyes, Ashley texted Ryan a single line: "She's asleep. Come now." She walked out of the bridal suite with the key I had given her, the same key that opened the door to the room where Ryan was staying. I spent that night dreaming about my future. Ashley spent it stealing it. They weren't just ending my wedding. They were ending the life I thought belonged to me. The first crack in my perfect wedding day didn't happen at the altar. It happened hours earlier, but I was too blinded by excitement to see guilt hiding in plain sight. Betrayal doesn't always reveal itself through chaos. Sometimes it whispers through the details we ignore. I woke up at 7 in the bridal suite, wrapped in warmth and possibility. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, painting soft patterns across the carpet. The room smelled like fresh flowers and hairspray, the scent of dreams becoming real. Ashley was already awake, sitting by the window, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. She looked wrong, pale, distant, like she'd aged years overnight. "Morning, bride," she said without turning her head fully. Her voice was cheerful. Her smile wasn't. I stretched, still drowsy. "I slept better than I thought." "Good." She swallowed hard. "You'll need your energy today." She couldn't meet my eyes. I assumed it was emotion about the wedding. I was giving her the benefit of the doubt. She was counting on it. The morning moved fast. Breakfast trays, makeup brushes, curling irons. Yet Ashley kept checking her phone, screen lighting up every few seconds. Each time she read a message, her expression shifted. Anxious, relieved, anxious again. Like she was riding emotional waves I knew nothing about. When she caught me watching, she forced a smile. "Just coordinating timing with the girls." I believed her. I thought she was being responsible. She was actually managing the aftermath of her betrayal. The hairstylist tried to include Ashley in the conversation, asking if she was excited for the reception. "I might leave early," Ashley murmured. That stopped me. Ashley never left a party early. She usually was the party. "You okay?" I asked. "Just emotional. You know how I get." But she wasn't overwhelmed with joy. She was suffocating under the weight of her own guilt. My makeup artist dabbed concealer under my eyes while Ashley stood in the corner, scrolling again. She kept changing places in the room, like she didn't know where to exist. When the photographer arrived to capture behind-the-scenes moments, Ashley stiffened. "Can we skip photos of me?" she asked quietly. I laughed. "What? You love photos." "Today should be about you," she insisted, stepping out of frame again. But she wasn't avoiding attention. She was avoiding evidence. When my dress arrived, everything paused. The gown was delicate ivory lace, restored and preserved since my grandmother wore it 60 years ago. A legacy, a promise, the one thing that made me feel connected to the women who came before me. Ashley helped me into it, hands trembling as she fastened each tiny button down my spine. We stood together in front of the full-length mirror. My reflection looked radiant. Bridal glow, soft curls, a future just beginning. Ashley's reflection looked broken. Tears streamed down her face. Ash. What's wrong? I whispered. You look beautiful, she said. Your grandmother would be proud. But she said it like a eulogy, not a celebration. Her grief wasn't about letting me go, it was about what she had already taken. Are you sure you're okay? I asked. She inhaled sharply, pulling herself together. Just overwhelmed. Watching you marry the love of your life? It's everything. She said the words, but her voice didn't match them. It sounded like she was reading from a script, not speaking from her heart. Betrayers don't break character easily, but their eyes always give them away. As we gathered our things to head to the ceremony, Ashley paused at the door. Claire, no matter what happens today, just remember, I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. I laughed lightly, assuming it was sentimental wedding day emotionalism. Nothing's going to change. Marriage doesn't take anything away. It just adds. I hugged her. She hugged me back stiffly like she was holding her breath. I was reassuring her that our friendship was unbreakable while she already knew she had shattered it. We walked toward the ceremony site arm in arm. The air outside was crisp, filled with the scent of roses and freshly cut grass. Guests were taking their seats, music drifting softly through the garden. Ashley leaned in and tightened her grip on my hand. Ready to become Mrs. Ryan? I nodded, smiling. More than ready. But she had already made sure that becoming Mrs. Ryan would be the biggest mistake of my life. She looked ahead with a serene expression, but her eyes darted toward Ryan at the altar. There it was again. That silent communication. That hidden understanding. I didn't know it then, but Ashley wasn't walking me toward my future. She was walking me toward the truth that would destroy it. The ceremony was about to begin, and my maid of honor was holding a secret big enough to detonate everything. During the ceremony, everything finally clicked. Not through dramatic revelation, but through a pattern that had been in front of me for months. Betrayal isn't loud. It's quiet. It hides in ordinary gestures. I began walking down the aisle with my father, my arm anchored in his. The soft music, the rustling of rose petals beneath my heels, the curious eyes of 200 guests, it all felt surreal. I looked at Ryan, standing at the altar, with that practiced expression of love and anticipation. The world felt suspended. But then Ashley stepped into place beside him, and something shifted. Ryan's eyes followed her movements, not casually, not innocently. There was an awareness between them I couldn't understand yet. Ashley straightened the bouquet in her hands, and Ryan subtly adjusted his stance. A reflex, a reaction. Their eyes met. Not a simple glance, a recognition. Ashley quickly looked away, her jaw tightening. The expression on her face wasn't nervous wedding energy. It was guilt. That subtle, heavy kind that pulls at the air between two people. I wasn't watching a moment of ceremony. I was witnessing the residue of a night they wished I'd never discover. The officiant began his prepared words about trust, loyalty, and marriage as a sacred bond. My eyes drifted to Ashley. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't even looking at me or Ryan. She stared at the ground like she was listening to her own thoughts instead of the vows. Ryan, meanwhile, looked tense. But not nervous tense. More like terrified of the truth tense. A fissure of discomfort ripped through me. Then came the part where the officiant asked, "If anyone knows of any reason these two should not be married, speak now." No one breathed. But Ashley lifted her head. Not to speak, but to look directly at Ryan. Their eyes locked. Silence had never held so much meaning. Secrets have a weight. And in that moment, it was suffocating both of them. Ryan shifted his vows from his pocket. He began reading, voice steady, words perfect. Claire, you are my best friend. The guests smiled. Cameras clicked. The scene was a perfect movie. Except for the fact that Ryan's eyes weren't on me. They kept flicking toward Ashley. Tiny, anxious, fleeting glances, like he needed confirmation that she wasn't going to fall apart. He wasn't speaking vows to me. He was performing. When it was my turn, I read my vows straight from the heart. Promises built on loyalty, trust, and everything I thought we were. As I spoke about the family we would build, Ashley's shoulders trembled, tears spilling down her cheeks. They weren't tears of happiness. They were tears of mourning. She wasn't crying for me. She was grieving the end of her fantasy. And then, the crack became a collapse. Exactly 23 minutes into the ceremony, I felt my bouquet vibrate. A notification. I thought it was from a vendor or a late guest. With the officiant speaking and Ryan preparing to place the ring on my finger, I lowered my eyes to the screen. Evan, our wedding photographer, had sent preview images. The first image was of me in the bridal suite, laughing under soft lighting. The second image wasn't. My fingers turned cold. Ashley, Ryan, my bridal suite, her hands in his hair, his body pressed against hers, my wedding dress hanging behind them like a witness to the crime. Timestamp: 2:47 a.m. While I slept, dreaming about forever, they were stealing it. In one heartbeat, I went from glowing bride to the punchline of someone else's secret romance. I didn't move. I couldn't. The officiant kept talking. Something about love, honor, and cherish. But I heard nothing. My pulse roared in my ears. Ryan slid the wedding band onto my shaking hand. He smiled at me like I was his future. Ashley stood inches away, holding my bouquet, smiling, as if she wasn't the woman in the photo, as if she hadn't just destroyed my life. I stared at her, searching her face for shame, remorse, anything. Instead, she gave a tiny, almost unnoticeable exhale. Relief. She thought I didn't know. She thought the lie was winning. Betrayal is easier to commit when you believe the other person will never open their eyes. The officiant looked at me. Claire, do you take Ryan to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold? My throat tightened. 200 guests waited for me to say I do. My family beamed from the front rows. Ashley stood beside me, pretending to support me while holding the phone that still had the key card to Ryan's room in her pocket. I had 15 seconds to decide. Choose silence and become the woman who accepted betrayal. Or choose truth and burn everything to the ground. The confrontation didn't happen at the altar. It happened 30 seconds after I realized my reality had been rewritten. The strongest people aren't the ones who stay silent. They're the ones who refuse to pretend. The officiant looked at me with a gentle smile. Claire, do you take Ryan to be your lawfully wedded husband? Ryan squeezed my hand like nothing in the universe was wrong. Ashley stood beside me, hands wrapped around my bouquet, the same hands that had been tangled in Ryan's hair just hours earlier. 200 guests watched, expecting a fairy tale. Instead, they watched it burn. No, I said. My voice didn't shake, it cut. The silence was so loud I could hear the shutters of a camera clicking from the last row. The officiant blinked, unsure whether I was emotional or choosing something unthinkable. Would you like a moment? He offered gently. I don't need a moment, I said. I need to tell the truth. Ryan's mask cracked. He stepped toward me, words sharp and low. Claire, stop. Ashley went pale, the panic in her eyes undeniable. I turned toward her, voice calm, controlled, lethal. Ashley, would you like to tell everyone what you did last night? Or should I? Power is not screaming. Power is being silent while everyone else panics. Ashley's voice trembled. Claire, please don't. Don't what? I asked. Don't reveal the reason I'm not marrying him? My voice carried across the garden. Everyone leaned in. While I was asleep in the bridal suite, trusting my maid of honor with my space and my fiancé with his vows, Ashley slept with him. In my room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ryan let out a breath like I'd punched him. Claire, that's not... Really? I held up my phone. Then explain this. I didn't need to zoom. The image filled the screen. Ashley. Ryan. Kissing. My wedding dress hanging behind them. There are truths that don't need narration, only exposure. Ashley dropped the bouquet. Flowers scattered on the ground like shattered promises. I never meant... You never meant to get caught, I said. There's a difference. Ryan reached toward me, voice desperate, rehearsed. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. We can fix this. A calm washed over me. A stillness I'd never known. A mistake is an accident. You don't accidentally end up in the bridal suite with my fiancé at 2 a.m. You planned this. The truth hit him harder than any slap ever could. Some people don't feel guilt. They feel inconvenience. My father, who had walked me down the aisle barely 5 minutes earlier, stood. No hesitation. No confusion. Claire, he said, what do you need? I need to leave. He nodded once. Then we're leaving. He offered his arm. I took it. And just like that, I walked away from my wedding. Ryan's voice cracked behind me. Claire, we need to talk about this privately. I turned back. One last time. There's nothing private about what you did. You had an affair in the room where I was sleeping, and you did it with the one person I trusted to protect me. Ryan's face collapsed. Ashley stepped forward, tears streaming. Please, let me explain. I didn't even pause. No. Closure isn't given through explanation. Closure is given through leaving. We walked past stunned guests, past the floral arch that was supposed to be my new beginning, past the life I almost stepped into blind. My dress dragged across the gravel path. My dignity did not. When the venue doors closed behind us, something inside me shifted. I thought betrayal would break me, but it didn't. It woke me up. Sometimes the worst moment of your life is the moment you finally choose yourself. Ashley destroyed my wedding day, but she saved me from marrying a man whose vows were already broken. And as I stepped into the sunlight outside that garden, I realized something. I didn't lose my happily ever after. I just redirected it toward someone who deserved it. Me. The truth didn't fully surface at the altar. It surfaced in the quiet aftermath. Betrayers always want to tell their version of the story, as if confessing makes the damage less real. After leaving the ceremony with my dad, I spent the afternoon at my parents' house, still wearing my wedding dress. I looked like a cracked porcelain doll sitting on the sofa, mascara smeared, veil crooked. Family members kept stopping by, hugging me, asking if I was sure, offering food I couldn't swallow. My phone vibrated nonstop. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. Everyone wanted an answer, but I needed only one thing: to get my belongings from the bridal suite before I lost my resolve. When I walked back into the venue, everything was quiet. All the decorations were still up, as if the wedding was frozen in time, like a celebration abandoned mid-scene. I opened the door to the bridal suite. Ashley was sitting on the edge of the bed, not crying, just waiting, like someone who needed to narrate her own crime. I knew you'd come back, she said softly. You shouldn't be here, I replied. I need to explain. I set my keys on the vanity but didn't sit down. There's nothing to explain. I saw the photos. There's more than just last night. The worst sentence someone can say after betrayal is, there's more. It started 3 months ago, Ashley whispered. After you and Ryan fought about the budget. I froze. 3 months ago was when our relationship began to feel strained. He called me that night, she continued. He wanted to talk about his fears, about the future. He said he didn't feel emotionally safe with you anymore. I felt something inside me crack. Not because of the betrayal, but because all my insecurities were being repeated back to me like evidence in a trial. And you decided to become his emotional support? At first, yes. Then it shifted. To what? Practice rounds before the main event? My voice was low, controlled. Ashley swallowed hard. He said he felt more understood by me than by you. He said I listened without judging. Affairs don't start with bodies. They start with validation. How many times? I asked. Silence. Ashley, how many times did you sleep with him? 7. The word hit like metal. 7 times. While I was choosing linens, cake flavors, place settings. 7 times. At his apartment when I worked late. At her place when she needed advice. And finally, in my bridal suite. Why didn't he just break up with me? I asked. Ashley's voice cracked. Because the invitations were already sent. Because calling off the wedding would have embarrassed him. Because his family loves you. People don't stay because they care about you. They stay because losing you is inconvenient. So the plan was to marry me and keep the affair going? He thought it would fade after the wedding. A tear slipped down her cheek. He wanted to honor his commitment to you. I laughed. The sound didn't feel human. Honor? Ashley lifted her head, finally looking at me. I wanted him to choose me. There it was. Not love, not connection, competition. Better, she said. I was better for him. I didn't stress him out. I didn't overwhelm him. I was easy. No, I said calmly. You were temporary. She flinched. You got the highlight reel. I continued. No bills, no real decisions, no life building. You were his escape from responsibility, not his future. Ashley pressed a hand to her mouth, sobbing. I never wanted to hurt you. Yes, you did. My voice didn't shake. You wanted to win. Some people don't want love. They want possession. And the worst part? I added. You didn't just betray me, you studied me, learned my fears, my insecurities, my pressure points, and you weaponized them. Ashley stood abruptly. What are you going to do with all of this? What she meant was, what are you going to do with the truth? I opened my clutch, pulled out the printed copies of the photo, the one where they kissed in front of my wedding dress. I handed one to her. You'll find out. Without another word, I picked up my suitcase, walked out, and closed the door on 15 years of friendship. Their confession didn't break me. It gave me ammunition. Because knowing how they betrayed me wasn't closure, it was strategy. I spent the first 24 hours after the wedding in survival mode, moving through waves of humiliation, anger, and disbelief. But on the second day, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to let their betrayal define me. Instead, I was going to use every piece of pain as fuel to take my life back. Healing didn't begin when the pain stopped. It began when I stopped protecting the people who caused it. The first decision I made was simple and unapologetic. I would not carry their secrets. No quiet explanations. No, we mutually decided to cancel the wedding. No protecting reputations that were built on lies. People had celebrated our love publicly, so they could live with the truth publicly. I started with the wedding gifts. Instead of returning them silently, I attached handwritten notes. The wedding has been canceled due to infidelity. Gifts will be returned to sender. I didn't write names. I didn't offer details. I didn't need to. The truth has a way of traveling on its own. When someone betrays you in the light, you don't owe them protection in the dark. My next move was financial. Weddings aren't just emotional investments. They're expensive. Deposits, venue fees, vendor retainers, and Ryan and I had split everything. Or at least, we were supposed to. I gathered every receipt, invoice, and screenshot of payments I had made. Then I printed the photo of them in the bridal suite and slid it on top of the stack like a final puzzle piece. My lawyer didn't even blink. "You're not responsible for the cancellation," she said. "He is." Ryan had broken the contract, literally and legally. My lawyer drafted a letter informing Ryan that based on documented evidence of infidelity, he was financially responsible for all remaining wedding costs. Betrayal might break your heart, but it does not cancel your intelligence. The next decision was personal. The honeymoon. Italy. 2 weeks. Non-refundable. Most people would cancel the trip. I refused. If Ryan could steal my wedding, I wasn't going to let him steal the future I had imagined, too. So I booked a single ticket with my name on it. Italy wasn't going to be a honeymoon anymore. It was going to be a rebirth. Standing in the airport terminal a week later, passport in hand, I felt something unfamiliar. Power. While I waited for boarding, messages buzzed through my phone. Some were supportive. Some were shocked. Some asked for details. I answered none, because one of the most underrated forms of power is silence that refuses to explain itself. On the plane, I opened a blank note on my phone and made a list titled, "What This Betrayal Taught Me." I wrote, "Loyalty with the wrong people becomes self-betrayal. If someone wants to deceive you, they will use proximity as their weapon." People who fear consequences always underestimate the strength of someone who stops fearing loss. By the time I finished writing, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. Closure isn't a conversation, it's a decision. But healing wasn't only internal. Piece by piece, the truth about Ashley began to emerge. Mutual friends called me, not to gossip, but to confess. I never trusted her around my boyfriend. She flirted with every guy in a relationship. She once bragged that she liked the challenge of men who were off limits. It turns out Ashley didn't accidentally fall into my relationship. She hunted it. And Ryan didn't slip into temptation. He opened the door and held it for her. The worst part? They used me as the alibi. Ashley's errands, Ryan's late meetings, vendor visits, planning sessions, all traps, all opportunities. Every hour I spent building my future was an hour they spent dismantling it. I used to replay everything, searching for warnings I missed. But eventually, I stopped blaming myself. Their betrayal wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was a reflection of their emptiness. The final stage of my recovery was quiet but powerful. I stopped asking why they did it, and started asking what I will do next. I unfollowed them both, blocked numbers, blocked emails, digitally erased them from my life. No dramatic announcement, just deletion. Not out of anger, out of peace. You don't heal by reopening the wound. You heal by refusing to let them bleed into your future. A week after the non-wedding, I was sitting on a balcony in Rome, sipping espresso and watching the sunrise. No wedding ring, no maid of honor, no fiancé. Just me, whole, breathing, becoming. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt free. I didn't realize how powerful the truth was until I stopped protecting the people who betrayed me. When someone takes everything from you, the most unexpected power move is refusing to collapse. After the wedding confrontation, there was no screaming, no dramatic meltdown, no attempt to salvage what was already dead. I walked away with my dignity, and that alone shifted the balance of power. Ashley and Ryan had expected me to keep things quiet, to protect my image, or maybe theirs. They thought I would be too embarrassed to let anyone know what they had done. They were wrong. Within days, people knew. Not because I went looking for sympathy, but because I refused to lie. When guests asked what happened, I answered honestly. The wedding was canceled due to infidelity. That was all it took. Rumors spread like wildfire, faster than Ryan or Ashley could rewrite the narrative. Truth is like gravity. You can fight it, but eventually, everything falls into place. They tried to hide their betrayal. I let the truth speak for me. And the truth was louder than their excuses. Ryan was the first to feel the consequences. As a financial advisor, his entire business relied on trust, the very thing he'd proven himself incapable of offering. Clients quietly pulled their accounts. Meetings were canceled. His office assistant told a mutual friend, "People don't want to give their money to someone who can't even manage his own life." Ryan wasn't being punished for cheating. He was being punished for lying. Ashley's downfall hit harder. She wasn't just a friend. She was a therapist. Someone people trusted with their vulnerabilities. But once her affair became known, several clients canceled appointments. One former client posted online, "How can a therapist guide me in my marriage when she destroyed her best friends?" Her supervisor placed her under review, her professional reputation shattered. Betrayal destroys more than relationships. It destroys credibility. The social consequences were even more brutal. Friends who'd once adored her now kept their distance. She'd walk into a room and conversations would stop. People looked at her with a mix of disbelief and disgust. Loyalty is a currency, and Ashley had spent hers recklessly. And Ryan? The man who claimed he couldn't live without her? He lasted 8 weeks. He ghosted her for someone new, someone easier, someone without history. People who cheat don't suddenly become faithful just because the partner changes. They cheat because lying is easier than being accountable. The person someone betrays you with will eventually learn how they got you. Then there was the phone call, Ryan trying to fix things. "Claire, we need to talk. We can handle this together." Together? He hadn't cared about together when he was kissing Ashley at 2:47 a.m. "You're ruining our reputations," he insisted. "Stop telling people," he begged. But I wasn't. Telling stories. The truth was telling itself. I didn't yell. I didn't defend. I simply said, "If the truth damages your reputation, that's not my problem." Silence on the other end. Power isn't loud. Power is choosing not to explain yourself. Ashley emailed too. Pages of emotional apologies that never once acknowledged the damage she caused. "I hope one day you forgive me so we can rebuild our friendship." Forgiveness isn't a reward for people who are uncomfortable with consequences. I didn't respond. Deleting the email felt better than answering ever would. Sometimes the most powerful closure is no closure at all. 6 months later, a mutual friend told me, "Ashley and Ryan aren't together anymore." Of course they weren't. Relationship karma doesn't need permission. She had stolen something broken, and he had chosen someone as temporary as his impulses. But by then, I wasn't even angry. I was busy living, traveling, healing, laughing, building a life that didn't include either of them. I no longer remembered the version of me who begged for loyalty from people who never deserved it. Because ultimately, Ashley taught me what real friendship isn't. Ryan taught me what real love isn't. And together, they taught me something far more valuable. I will never again apologize for choosing myself. The real revenge was not destroying them. It was refusing to be destroyed. 6 months after the wedding, life had finally settled into a peaceful rhythm, one built on silence, boundaries, and the absence of chaos. I had stopped wondering what Ryan or Ashley were doing. I had stopped replaying old conversations trying to identify the moment of betrayal. I had stopped caring. That's when Ashley came back. Betrayers always return, not because they care, but because their consequences have finally caught up to them. I was sitting at a corner cafe with my college friend Sarah, a place Ashley and I used to spend hours talking about our futures, when a familiar perfume drifted toward our table. The scent hit me before I even looked up. Lilac and jasmine, Ashley's signature choice. I didn't want to turn around, but the footsteps stopped at our table. "Claire, can we talk?" Her voice was thinner now, fragile. Nothing like the woman who once believed she could take anything she wanted. I didn't move. I didn't invite her to sit. That alone was power. Sarah shifted in her seat, her posture protective. Ashley's eyes flickered to her, silently asking for privacy. But I'd given Ashley all the privacy she needed while she destroyed my life. Whatever you want to say, you can say here, I said calmly. She pulled out the chair across from me and sat without permission, as if she was slipping back into an old habit, forgetting that she no longer belonged in my life. Her hands trembled as she placed them on the table. I've been doing therapy. I've learned so much. I just want to make things right. I didn't respond. Silence can be louder than shouting. Ashley stared down at her hands, searching for the version of me who used to validate her feelings and make her mistakes easier to bear. I ruined everything, she whispered. I live with that every day. She wanted comfort for the consequences, not accountability for the choices. Guilt has a sound, desperate, shaky. Regret sounds different, it's steady, humble. What I heard in her voice wasn't regret, it was discomfort. She needed relief from the weight of her own actions. For her, closure meant forgiveness. For me, closure meant distance. I miss our friendship, she continued. 15 years. Shouldn't that mean something? Her words hung in the air like smoke. 15 years did mean something. That's why her betrayal had detonated like a bomb. Ashley mistook the length of a connection as proof of its depth. Time doesn't prove loyalty. Behavior does. Finally, I spoke. You didn't make a mistake, Ashley. You made months of choices. Her eyes glistened. People can change. Maybe. But trust doesn't. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. I've been abandoned by everyone. Ryan left. Friends cut me off. I moved out of our apartment. I just want one person, someone who knows who I am, to believe I can do better. There it was. She didn't want me back. She wanted her old life back. Leaned forward slightly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I didn't list every betrayal like evidence in a trial. I simply told the truth. You miss who you were when I loved you. Ashley's breath caught. You were my character reference, I continued. As long as I believed you were a good person, everyone else did too. When I stopped believing it, your world shifted. Her eyes widened with realization. I wasn't the loss. The loss was the validation I used to give her. When you take back your power, people who fed on it feel starved. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I'm trying, Claire. I'm trying so hard to be better. Good. Be better somewhere else. She flinched as if I had struck her. The urge to comfort her, an instinct I once had, never came. Growth. Ashley tried again, voice rising as panic took over. So we're just done? After everything? You're just throwing it away? You threw it away. I just stopped trying to salvage the wreckage. Her face twisted with bitterness. You're unforgiving. You're cold. No wonder Ryan... She cut herself off too late. People reveal themselves in pressure. Ryan didn't cheat because I lacked something. He cheated because Ashley lacked integrity. I stood, placing my coffee cup on the table with steady hands. You don't get to rewrite the story just because you don't like how it ended. Ashley's voice cracked. I thought therapy meant owning my mistakes. I thought coming here meant I could make amends. Coming here meant you wanted relief from guilt, I replied. Making amends would mean respecting my boundary. Which is, we are done. Silence stretched between us. Not tense. Final. Ashley pushed away from the table, motion jerky, emotional composure shattered. You'll regret this, she muttered. No, I said, collecting my bag. I regret trusting the wrong people. And I fixed that. She stared at me, searching for the weakness she used to exploit. the soft place where she could slip a rationalization or excuse. But that version of me was gone. I walked past her without looking back. The strongest version of yourself is born the moment you stop negotiating with people who hurt you. Outside, sunlight hit my face like an affirmation. Sarah walked beside me, quiet for a moment. Then, "You handled that with more grace than she ever deserved." Grace isn't softness. Grace is strength without theatrics. I didn't need to destroy Ashley. I just needed to remove her access. Later that night, I thought about something. Ashley didn't want forgiveness. She wanted permission to forget what she'd done. Forgiveness without accountability isn't healing. It's enabling. And I was done enabling. Ashley eventually moved to another city, chasing a fresh start in a place where her history didn't follow her like a shadow. But shadows aren't tied to geography. They're tied to character. I never heard from her again. And I never missed the person she revealed herself to be. Some endings aren't losses. They're upgrades. 1 year later, I stood in the same garden where my wedding should have taken place. Only this time, I wore a bridesmaid's dress and a calm I didn't recognize on myself last year. Sun filtered through the sycamores, catching on the glasses lining the reception tables. The string quartet warmed up in the corner. Sarah squeezed my hand before walking down the aisle, and for a moment the air smelled like second chances. Roses, cut grass, and something bright and clean after rain. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you opens the only door that leads to the life you were meant to live. I thought about the woman who'd stood here 12 months ago with a phone hidden in her bouquet and a future evaporating in real time. She had no idea that canceling a marriage would become the most honest decision of her life. She had no idea that a public ending could be the beginning of everything. The embarrassment people warned me about? It lasted weeks. The relief of not binding myself to someone who had already broken his vows? That grew like sunlight, stronger every day. I learned quickly that there's a difference between saving face and saving your life. Temporary embarrassment is a small price to pay for avoiding permanent disrespect. Within 3 months, the old shape of my life revealed its seams. With distance came clarity. My relationship with Ryan had been a collection of compromises that slowly sanded me down. Harmony had looked like love from the outside, but inside it felt like shrinking. Without the pressure to perform a future for other people, I began to hear my own voice again. Louder, steadier, less apologetic. 6 weeks after the non-wedding, I went to Italy. Alone. Florence taught me to walk instead of rush. Rome taught me that history survives every empire. The Amalfi Coast taught me that fear and freedom taste the same at first, salt, sweet, and dizzying. I learned to order dinner for one without feeling like half a person. I learned to take photos without needing proof that someone else was standing next to me. I laughed, really laughed, on a boat at sunset when a wave soaked me head to toe, and a stranger shouted, "That means luck!" It did. The honeymoon I took alone was more intimate than any trip I'd taken with someone secretly leaving me behind. Back home, that courage bled into everything. At work, I stopped softening my opinions so others felt comfortable. I pitched bolder campaigns, negotiated harder, asked for resources, and stopped apologizing for existing in rooms I'd already earned. 6 months after choosing truth over comfort, I earned a promotion I'd been too careful to pursue. People called it momentum. I called it alignment. Betrayal sharpened my instincts. I learned to listen when words and actions argued. I no longer interpreted inconsistency as mystery. I read it as data. That shift remapped my friendships. The ones built on appearance slid away. The ones built on substance deepened. I stopped celebrating grand gestures that tried to buy forgiveness and started honoring small, consistent choices that built trust brick by brick. Performance sparkles, authenticity endures. Know the difference, and you'll save years. 8 months out, I met David at a conference where I presented a session on narrative strategy. He asked two smart questions from the back row and didn't try to dominate the Q&A. We traded cards, then emails. There were no fireworks, just a steady warmth that felt like standing near a good stove in winter. When I told him what happened last year, he didn't flinch. "I'm sorry you went through that," he said. "I'm grateful you chose yourself. That tells me who you are." That sentence was the opposite of love bombing. It was recognition. Clean, simple, unperformed. Our relationship grew at the pace of honesty. No grand declarations, no curated displays for the internet. Just consistent presence, curiosity, space, and respect. When he proposed on a quiet ridge during a camping trip, no audience, no choreographed reveal, I said yes, without that old voice wondering what I was giving up to say it. The friends who stood with me at our small courthouse ceremony were the people who had stood with me when I stood alone. No one asked me to keep the peace at the expense of my sanity. No one tried to tidy the truth. The people who celebrate your new beginning should be the ones who protected your dignity during your ending. As for Ryan, I never heard from him again after the phone call about moving forward. I learned through the grapevine that his practice lost clients and his relationships lost momentum. That's what happens when trust is a marketing line instead of a lived habit. Ashley moved to Portland and started again. Social updates suggested boundary issues followed her. Geography doesn't change character. It just changes scenery. People who betray core relationships rarely build authentic ones without first rebuilding themselves. But this was no longer their story for me. It was mine. And mine changed because I rearranged the furniture of my life around a new foundation: self-respect. Here is what the year taught me. Protecting yourself isn't cruel. It's stewardship. You are the only person tasked with guarding your peace. Outsourcing that job is how you lose it. Watch for alignment, not applause. Grand gestures can conceal small daily betrayals. Pay attention to patterns. Look for the quiet math of character. Promise, plus follow through over time. Stop explaining the obvious. If someone benefits from misunderstanding you, explanations are wasted oxygen. Boundaries don't require essays, they require enforcement. Choose temporary pain over permanent erosion. Leaving costs something. Staying can cost everything. Trust your early shivers. When words and actions disagree, listen to the body that tightens in warning. Your intuition keeps receipts. Make room for the right people by releasing the wrong ones. Nature hates a vacuum. So does the heart. When you stop negotiating with harm, health has somewhere to land. Love without loyalty isn't love. Loyalty without honesty isn't loyalty. If you're reading this because something feels off, believe yourself. You don't need a photograph to justify a boundary. You don't need consensus to leave a room where you're being diminished. Start with small truths. I'm not comfortable. I feel unseen. This requires more of me than is fair to give. Small truths grow into big courage. The garden filled with music. Sarah turned the corner on her father's arm, radiant without performing radiant. I felt tears prick. Not the old kind, not the ones harvested from loss, but new ones, stitched from joy that didn't ask me to disappear to keep it. After the ceremony, David found me by the hedge of climbing roses, pressed a kiss to my temple, and handed me a lemon tart from the dessert table because he knows I always choose citrus over chocolate. It's a small thing. It's everything. Later, as we said goodbye to the last guests, I walked to the arch where I had once stood on the edge of a cliff disguised as an altar. I touched the wood. It felt like a closed door that had become a gate. The wedding that never happened, I whispered, saved the life I actually wanted. Some endings are protective miracles wearing the mask of disaster. If someone you trust has betrayed you, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to tell you what's possible. You can survive the shattering. You can build something truer in its place. You can become someone you respect, maybe for the first time. Tell the truth. To yourself first, then to others as needed. Set the boundary. Take the trip. Return the gifts. Keep the lessons. Let the rest go. And if you need a sign, let this be one. You are not hard for protecting your heart. You are wise. You are allowed to require what you also promise. You are allowed to leave when staying would teach the people around you that you can be hurt without consequence. The woman I used to be wanted a perfect wedding. The woman I am now wants a faithful life. If this story found you at the right moment, share your own in the comments. Your honesty might be the hinge on someone else's door. And if you're walking through the fire right now, subscribe. Stay close. Around here, we don't glamorize pain. We alchemize it into futures we're proud to live. 1 year later, in the same garden, with different music and better company, I finally understood. I didn't lose a happily ever after. I chose one.